So the gut-brain axis means your gut health can affect your mental well-being.
Yes. I love this one. There is a connection, direct connection between your gut and your brain. So they are communicating with one another 24/7. So not only can your gut impact your brain impacts your gut. And we know this as an athlete. When I'm super stressed before a race, brain, you're super stressed. Where do I feel this? I feel it in my gut almost instantaneously. So we already know this from just if you have to think about yourself in situations. But yeah, they both impact one another and communicate 24/7.
I work in security, and so I focused on burglaries for a while for a big retail company. And I came across an article that lots of burglars in private houses, the first thing they do is they go to the toilet if they're new burglars because they get so nervous. And so they use the toilet. So, you know, the crime scene investigation's kind of confused, like, okay, the toilet's a crime scene as well. But yeah, maybe that speaks to what you just said.
Exactly.
Like,
that is a very funny fact.
What if the real reason you're not feeling at your best right now is hidden inside of you in your gut? Now, we're talking gut nutrition, and I'm not talking about some vague wellness trend. This is for real, and I'm about to tell you why. So 3 years ago, the scales told me 115 kilos. I was very unhappy. I had chronic hand eczema, so bad I couldn't even cook without wearing latex gloves. I'm a very passionate cook. And it was so extreme, couldn't do my daughter's nappies without risking an infection in my hands. And I used to wake up every morning, first thing, look at my hands, what kind of a hand day are we going to have? And if I look back 3 years ago, my gut, complete mess, right? Frequent diarrhea. I was trying to lose weight through jogs. These jogs turned into toilet sprints, if you know what I mean. I tried everything, nothing was working. And it's about this time when I went through every test known to man. So I decided I'm not putting up with this. And I went down this rabbit hole and I got tested, stool tests, blood tests, skin tests, you name it, I got it, right? I wanted a data-driven approach to what's going on. And I wanted to figure out what my body was trying to tell me. And I had a gut feeling that I need to listen to my gut, literally. And it's about at that time when I came across InnerBuddies, a young Dutch company. They have tests like this that you can buy. They send them home to you. You go to the toilet, you put some data in the toilet, if you know what I mean, and you send it off to them. And they have something really cool. They provide a dashboard for you to understand your microbiome and to take steps and changes to your nutrition to influence your microbiome. I've done this 5 times over the last 3 years. It's been essential in my health rediscovery. 30 kilos lost, hand eczema gone, healthier person, yes, absolutely different person. I wanted to share this journey with you guys, and especially the influence InnerBuddies had on this journey. And when I realized I'm going to do this podcast, one of the first places I wanted to go to and involve in the podcast was InnerBuddies. So I sent them an email, I sent them my story, and they linked me up with their COO, Crystal Kriek. And that's about the episode you're going to tune in a minute. Now, just to set the context, InnerBuddies sent me a test. I did the test. It's this one right here. So I did it, and then COO Crystal Kriek and me dissect the test and go through the dashboard and look at my bacteria, look at my nutrition, and she unlocks her brain. And it's a fascinating episode. We went deep into my microbiome, not just about food, but about understanding what's missing and how I can take small but meaningful steps in tweaking my nutrition, thereby influencing my gut, my microbiome, and through it, my entire health. So I learned from Crystal that the gut is connected to everything. It's connected to your brain, cognitive function, to your skin, to so many things. And this is cool for us because if we take small but consistent adjustments to our diet, it can lead to massive change. Now, look at my story, and that's proof, right? So I wanted to share this with you guys. It's for you if your gut's off, if your skin's off, if you are frequently bloated, suffer from diarrhea. This episode's for you. Crystal's insights could be the key to unlocking the health you've been chasing. So if you want to know what's going on inside your gut, head over to www.innerbuddies.com, use Weller Guts at checkout, and get yourself a microbiome analysis test. And stick around, because the information Crystal drops could change the way you think about your health for good. It did for me. So enjoy Crystal Kriek. Welcome to Coach Me If You Can. Welcome to this exclusive corner of chaos. I'm super happy for you to join us today. I think if I reflect over the last 3 years, I lost 30 kilos, 2 children. No, I haven't lost them, but I've gained 2 children.
Good to clarify.
Yeah, good to clarify. And I've become such a healthier person. I've also defeated chronic hand eczema, and maybe this is something you can help us unpack today. I have a suspicion that my microbiome played a huge role in all of this.
So do I.
So welcome, Crystal. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to get into all the topics and
Cool. What do you do? Why do you do it?
what do I do? Why do I do it? So maybe how long can this introduction be?
As long as you need.
It's quite long. So let me get started, take a few steps back. So I am originally from South Africa. When I was 18 years old, I got offered a scholarship to go to the US as a runner. So that is what I'm super, super passionate about, is running and just sports in general, to be honest. I love anything to do with sports. So moved to the US, and why not? Loved it. Was there for 6 years, where I did my bachelor's and my master's in nutrition and dietetics. So that
You kept your South African accent. Though.
Yes.
You didn't, no American twang to be detected there.
some people don't agree with you. Some people think
Really?
like, oh, you're from America. And I'm like, wow, do I really? I don't think I sound American.
No. Anyway.
But yeah, so I'm a registered dietitian by background. And where does this pull in with the gut microbiome? When I was in my master's, I did my thesis on the gut microbiome and nutrition. And why did I do this? Is because as a dietitian, we learn a lot about the Mediterranean diet, because that is really, call it the gold standard of healthy eating. And I thought to myself, why could it be? What are all of the reasons? Could it be because of how the Mediterranean diet impacts the gut microbiome? And so chose that as my thesis topic. Shortly after, got married, moved to the Netherlands, found InnerBuddies. And at InnerBuddies, we specialize in the gut microbiome and nutrition. So it was a perfect match. We came here for my husband's job, and I work now right opposite him.
That's so cool.
Quite a coincidence. But that's what I do, is I help people, improve the health of their gut microbiome, particularly through nutrition. But of course, that's not the only impact, but we'll get into all of that.
I also love the name InnerBuddies. Where does that come from?
It comes from the buddies that live inside you. So we like to, if you talk about the gut microbiome, one, a lot of people don't understand it's very scientific. And two, if you talk about stool testing or poop, it's quite a touchy subject. Not a lot of people like to talk about it. So we want to make it fun. We want to explain it in a way that's easy to understand. And so we thought, why don't you see it as your buddies, your friends that live inside of you, that want to keep you healthy, and therefore InnerBuddies.
I love it. It's also so friendly towards children. I can see you explaining this to a class. Have you done that before, in kindergarten or something?
Not, but that would be quite fun. I think
that would be cool. I need to be
there.
there.
Kids would also love it, right? Because we are standing in front of them talking about poop as well. Cool.
Yeah. Okay, there's that aspect as well. Yeah. I always call it the data. When I speak to friends about InnerBuddies and having done the test, I go to the toilet and I put some data in the toilet and I scoop some data off, and then I mail some data to InnerBuddies, and they then analyze my data. And I flush the data down as well. Yeah.
Flush the data. Yeah, that's one way. That's one way to explain.
Okay. Can you walk us through how it works with InnerBuddies? So how do you help individuals with their microbiome? Just walk us through the steps.
Yep, sure. So we do an at-home stool test. So you don't have to go to the hospital, your GP, whatever it is. You can go online through our websites, any of our B2B partners. You order a test that gets shipped to your house for free. And in there, you find everything you need. So you have your instructions, you have your little stool testing kit, if you will, that helps make the process super easy. You take a scoop of poop, is what I like to say, put it in the test tube, send it back to our lab, and then you also fill in 2 data sets, an online survey where we collect a bunch of very helpful information, such as, goodness gracious, what type of diets are you on, if you are on any, for example, vegan, vegetarian, do you have any diseases, intolerances, as what is your weight, your height, you name it, everything that could be very useful for us to give you the best recommendations. That's one data point. And the other one is a 3-day food diary, also online. So 3 days leading up to taking your stool sample, you fill in everything you've had to eat or drink so that we can also tie in those connections to the gut microbiome, because your nutrition can impact your gut microbiome within 24 to 48 hours. It's really quick. So that's super cool for us to also see, one, what are you actually doing and how can we help give you tips and tricks to improve your diet in general, and then specifically in terms of the gut microbiome. But we also use this data for research to see what's actually happening, which is very nice, because then we have universities reach out to us and say, hey, how can we look at this, draw some correlations, make a publication? So that's also super important for us to stay up to date with the latest science. But anyway, I'm getting on a tangent. Once the lab has done the stool sample analysis, we upload that raw data into our data set and pipeline. Customer can go online onto their profile, and then we have an online dashboard. And on this online dashboard, which we'll go through a bit later, you can see your results. So what's actually happening inside your what are your InnerBuddies up to? What does it look like? So these are the results. A lot of the time it doesn't mean much to a consumer. So you also want to pair that with recommendations. What do you do about this? And that's what we're super passionate in, is the recommendations part of things. So this is what it looks like. You either, looks quite good. There's some areas of improvement most of the time. And this is what you can do. This is the type of nutrition you can add to your diet, maybe take out of your diet. And a few months ago, we also launched our supplement recommendations. So if a customer also wants that, then we can also help them with some prebiotic and probiotic recommendations. And all of this is available on their online dashboard. So
Super cool. You touched on universities collaborating with you guys. Where do you think, it's probably really difficult to answer, but in its evolution, the study of the microbiome is? Are we rather developed? Do we know a lot of what's going on, or are we just kind of scraping the top, so to speak?
that's a great question. And I think you might get different answers depending on who you ask. There are definitely some critics in the field of gut microbiology. Where we see it, is we have a ton of data already. There is a ton of literature, a ton of research done. Do we still have a ways to go? Absolutely, we do. But it doesn't mean that we can't do anything yet. And I think you get kind of these two sides of the opinion of, we're not there yet, so we should stand still. We shouldn't do anything. We should wait until we have concrete guidelines, this is what a healthy gut microbiome looks like, before we can even help consumers. I disagree with that. I think we have enough already. We have so much fascinating, exciting data with correlations between, bacteria diversity. So how diverse is your gut microbiome, between specific microbes and your immune system, or, gut-brain axis, which I'd love to get into. Let's use it. Let's make the disclaimer to consumers of, hey, we're still learning, we're still growing. We're going to update everything we do as science grows, but we can already do something, right? We can already give them a little bit of an insight, give them some recommendations, because those do exist. But of course, we still have a ways to go. We aren't at the point, maybe to answer your question very concretely, we aren't at the point where we can say for sure this type of microbiome creates this disease. We can draw correlations. There's a lot of correlations there. This type of microbiome seems to be linked to this type of disease. And there's so many of them, by the way, but we're not there yet where we can say this causes this. So it's causal effect, not there yet, but correlation, a lot of correlations.
Is that like a matter of time? So I'm imagining we're not the Flintstones, but we're not the Jetsons either, if you know that. So maybe in the Jetsons, if one fast forwards, one could hopefully show correlation, like this kind of a microbiome, you're at risk for certain types of diseases. If that continues, the time for intervention is now. Is that kind of how you imagine the future?
Absolutely. In terms of years, I'm not sure. I think it's years we're talking about, not months. But we, as InnerBuddies, actually as a company, we want to be on the forefront of that. But with that comes, a lot of clinical trials. You need to make sure you need to collect a lot of data, and we want to go that way. So this is how we work with universities to see, okay, how can we create a clinical trial for a few years long where we isolate a specific disease? For example, we choose whatever it is. Can we draw those causal effects with specific recommendations? So the community, the gut microbiome, microbiologist community, we are heading in that direction. How long it takes, that's difficult to answer.
I had to think of all that unused poop being flushed down the toilet, which is such a shame. And you guys would actually like it, right? You would like give it to us, send it to us.
Yeah.
We'll use it. We'll use it.
Exactly.
Cool. Okay. So we have a section in the show called Fact or Fiction. This is where I throw you some statements. Mm-hmm. And you can tell us if they're fact or fiction, and together, well, you can reflect, and maybe I pepper you with a question or two based on your reflection.
Yeah, fun.
You ready to go?
Fun, yeah, let's go.
So, you are what you eat.
You are what you eat.
Quick one from me. This episode is brought to you by InnerBuddies. InnerBuddies is a young modern company in the Netherlands. They're a spin-off from Maastricht University, and they do something rather specific and actually darn cool. So they study poop. They study the microbiome, they study the gut, and they do that through studying poop. So they studied my poo 5 times now over the last 3 years, and I must say I'm a complete convert. So since then I've lost 30 kilos, I've beaten hand eczema, and I'm actually probably, as lots of people around you might say, a lot less irritable than I was, which is probably like a public service. So go check out the boys and girls at InnerBuddies, www.innerbuddies.com, and have a look at one of their test kits. So they send one of these test kits home to you. You go to the toilet, you put some data in the toilet, if you know what I mean. You scoop some of the data off and you mail it to them. And 4 to 6 weeks later, you get a personalized dashboard. Now, the dashboard shows you exactly what's happening on the inside. It shows your microbiome, what bacteria are thriving, which ones have gone AWOL, and how you can use nutrition and supplements to sort things out. Now, through it, I pinpointed low levels of certain bacteria, good bacteria, lactobacillus. I'm lactose intolerant, lacto, I get it. They make a topic that is very scientific, incredibly easy to navigate for us mere non-scientific folk, and they make it fun. So I've done it 5 times. It's surely not the last time. And go over to their website and check it out. So it's a bit clever, it's a bit strange, and it works. If you've ever wondered why your energy's low, why your skin's flaring up, why you're irritable, or why your third coffee is just not hitting right and you're running off to the toilet the whole time, your gut might be trying to tell you something, and InnerBuddies helps you listen. Go check out the boys and girls at InnerBuddies, www.innerbuddies.com, and have a look at one of their test kits and use the code WELLERGUTS at checkout for a small discount. Back to the show.
That is quite the statement.
You've heard it before though, right? You've heard it before.
So much. That is one that is a very common statement. This is how I'll answer it. You aren't only what you eat, but what you eat has a big impact in your overall health and wellness. So I'm somewhere in the middle with it. And you might hear me say this a lot throughout this podcast, but anything that is a solid one direction, there's a magic bullet for this, or it's only this, I vary from. So you aren't only what you eat, but what you eat has a huge impact. Yes.
I love it. I love it. And also, if I think about my own reflection, 3 years, 30 kilos less, how I feel in my own skin, also thinking of the eczema, but in my own skin has improved so much. And I think the diet, I've done like a 180 from thinking I was eating healthy to really eating healthy. So we'll unpack that later. But I kind of 100% agree with you with that one. I've noticed the effects of diet, but I had to be patient because you kind of eat something and you're like, okay, work, salad,
Exactly.
work, make me feel good.
2 hours wide awake. Yeah.
So the gut-brain axis means your gut health can affect your mental well-being.
Yes. I love this one. This is one of the fun topics for me. I'm actually speaking at Wageningen University next week, a presentation about the gut-brain axis. Yes, so gut-brain axis, huge topic, super fun. So this is one fact for sure, but there is a direct connection between your gut and your brain. So they are communicating with one another 24/7. So not only can your gut impact your brain impacts your gut. And we know this actually from a standpoint of, for example, as an athlete, when I'm super stressed before a race, brain, you're super stressed. Where do I feel this? I feel it in my gut almost instantaneously. So we already know this from just if you have to think about yourself in situations. But yeah, they both impact one another and communicate 24/7. So super cool fact. Yeah.
I'll have to send you an article. I work in security, and so I focused on burglaries for a while for a big retail company. And I came across an article that lots of burglars in private houses, the first thing they do is they go to the toilet if they're new burglars because they get so nervous. And so they use the toilet. So, the crime scene investigation's kind of confused, like, okay, the toilet's a crime scene as well. But yeah, maybe that speaks to what you just said.
Exactly. That is a very funny fact.
Next, the gut is often referred to as the second brain.
Fact, yes. So this has got to do with the gut-brain axis I was talking about. That the gut is referred to as your second brain. This is because you have your nervous system, right? Which you can think about your central nervous system is brain. You actually have a nervous system in your gut as well. This is called your enteric nervous system. So it has its own nervous system as well, which is where the saying your gut is your second brain comes from. It's specifically from your enteric nervous system. So it can create neurotransmitters, neurons, all of these hormones that are communicating back and forth. So yeah, fact.
Love it. Let's see. Diversity of gut bacteria matters more than overall number. In the overall number. Yes. So if you're thinking of, if you mean the overall number just of I have 1 million, let's call it, then yes, diversity really matters because diversity looks at how many different types. So if you're talking about 1 million, maybe you have 1 million and only 2 types, for example, that wouldn't happen. But diversity really looks at how many different kinds of species live within your gut. Why does this matter? One, there's so much research that when it looks at diversity, generally speaking, a more diverse gut microbiome is linked to more beneficial health outcomes, and a lower diversity within your gut is linked to more like chronic inflammation, etc. This is a bit scientific, but one of the reasons why is because of something called functional redundancy. So what this basically means is certain species can help each other out. The way I like to think about this, if you work in a company and in a team and you go on vacation for a week, the company doesn't just stop if there's more people that can do your job. Your colleagues kind of take over your work that you have to do. Same thing happen in your gut. So you want to make sure you have, for example, enough engineers in the company. If you just have one and that engineer goes, no one can do his job. But if you have a few more, okay, it's okay. We can carry on. You can go on vacation because your colleagues can help you out. So, yeah. I'm smiling because I always say in terms of innovation, innovative teams need to have cognitive diversity and they need to be different. If you want to predict the economy, do you want 4 economists from the same universities that studied the same thing? Or do you want diversity? But I also had to think of the image of a classroom, thinking of buddies. when you walk into the classroom, maybe the classroom looks very different. Lots
Yeah.
of different students from different countries doing different things. But that's kind
Absolutely.
of the image that I have. So diversity is good. I love it. Antibiotics can disrupt your gut microbiome, leading to health issues.
Yes, this is a fact for sure. Been well studied as well. So people generally take antibiotics when they want to kill off bad bacteria. You have a bacterial infection, you take antibiotics because it's antibacteria. The issue we have here is that it doesn't just kill the bad, it kills the good as well. So you can wipe out a good chunk of your gut microbiome taking antibiotics, and it could take a very long time to actually heal a gut microbiome after a period of antibiotics. It obviously depends on the person. What does your diet look like, your lifestyle, your exercise, etc. But yes, antibiotics can wipe out a huge portion of the good and the bad. And then it leaves room for the bad to grow and to do things that we don't want. And that's not beneficial for us.
And I imagine there are different classes of antibiotics. Some are probably stronger than others. And I've done the InnerBuddies test, I think 4, 5, 6 times. And one coincidentally just after I went to hospital because of a blood infection from my hand eczema. I don't know why I was showing you my hand. They look fine now, but they look very different 3 years ago. And I remember blood infection went there, you swollen finger because of a cut, and it got infected. And I remember straight away afterwards, because I was completely overhauling my life, I thought the perfect moment to do an InnerBuddies thing. Like, let's see if this had an impact. And it was wiped clean. Some of the diversity scores were actually like almost below 0. So the classroom was empty. Maybe there was like one child, me kind of sitting there like, shouldn't we have friends? But maybe we can talk about that later. But yeah, okay. I think that's a big one, because I don't know if a lot of people know that aspect. Like antibiotics, of course, they have their purpose. I'm take everything I say when it comes to medical stuff with a grain of salt, but I think there's a time for those for sure. But I'm not sure if it's common knowledge that it can have a disruptive impact on the gut microbiome.
I don't think it is common knowledge, to be honest. And I'll give you a story. We now obviously live in the Netherlands, where it's not super common to prescribe antibiotics. Doctors more so will just give you like a general paracetamol, which is like a pain medication. But in South Africa, that is completely different. Everything gets antibiotics. So people kind of just have it in their cupboards of, oh yeah, you don't feel well, take some antibiotics. So I grew up with that mindset. And when I learned more in university and now working in this field, I realized, oh no, the only time I or my family will take antibiotics now is if it's really medically absolutely necessary. But I try to avoid it at all costs. Yeah.
Interesting. Including fermented foods in your diet can improve gut health.
Yes, fermented foods often contain live beneficial microbes. So this is something we do recommend to our customers, to my friends and family. You can think of things like yogurt there's fermented food. Kefir or kefir, depending on where you're from, how you say it, is this yogurt drink that's really tangy, but there's been studies on the benefits of it, same as yogurt, and then other types as well.
What ones do you have in your household?
Always yogurt. That is the easiest one. Kefir, my husband loves it. Some people love it, some people hate it.
The Dutch should be big on kefir. Like them with their Carner milk,
Yeah.
they're big on that. It's like an upgrade. It's almost like how Carner milk probably should taste like.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. We have those too. I'll be very honest. Kimchi, I really like kimchi as well. Sauerkraut, difficult for me to get on board. So, but yeah, those are probably the big ones we have.
So when I went down this rabbit hole with the gut microbiome, I went full on. I burned out at my previous employer. That's a whole separate story, but I've spoken about it in this podcast. And suddenly you're on the couch, you're in a vegetative state, and you've got to find stuff to do. You're not capable of doing too much hectic stuff with your mind. So I was like, maybe it's finally time to look into this fermented food stuff. So at the time, a lot of kefir. I noticed I was lactose intolerant, so Keith went out the window. I thought, okay, what now? And now if you walk into our kitchen, it looks like a chemist's lab with all these jars. So we have kimchi, we have sauerkraut, we have kombucha. My daughter goes bonkers when she sees kombucha. She goes oocha oocha kombucha.
So cute.
Like we do this kind of these donkey bridges, I think in German you call them eine Eselsbrücke. So if you want to teach someone something, you have to make it kind of fun or that they can remember. So we do it with Genie, aubergine, amber, cucumber. She knows more vegetable types. Etta, feta. I can go on, ili, fusilli. But anyway, she goes nuts when there's a new batch of kombucha happening. And yeah, I went on a tangent now. But anyway.
I have a story to add quickly to your tangent.
Okay, go.
When I was in university, if I wanted to treat myself, like let's say I did really good on an exam or did really good in a track meet, whatever it may be, my treat would be kombucha because it was really expensive, but I really like it. So if I were to treat myself now, I'd go to the store and buy my favorite kombucha. So I just like your daughter, love some kombucha.
Cool. Let's see. Stress has no impact on the gut microbiome.
That is for sure fiction. This goes back to what we were speaking about earlier about the gut-brain axis, right? So your gut microbiome impacts your brain, as I said, but your brain also impacts your gut microbiome. So stress, we can think of cortisol production directly impacts your gut microbiome. So think of things like your gut microbiome diversity, which we said is super important, but then also the lining of your gut, which we might get into, needs to be strong and stable to basically protect your body from anything bad that's happening in your gut, and stress can impact the permeability of your gut lining.
But you guys are perfectly positioned to study that, right? Because in your questionnaires, you guys ask what are your stress levels, and then you also get the samples. And so in a matter of time, you'll be able to compare people not stressed and their microbiome with people who are very stressed and see if there's any interesting patterns to dig into.
We are in this week, actually, and next week, we are currently running some calculations on this exact topic. So yeah, so very excited.
Okay. Crystal, thanks for playing Fact or Fiction.
Thank you. It was very fun.
You survived.
Thank goodness.
Okay, good. Cool. So the next section is the heart of the show. It's Coach Me If You Can. It's a coaching session. So we'll do this for 45 minutes or so. This is typically where I hand the reins over to the coach. You're the coach in this equation. And it's your time to work your magic, your favorite moves, those kind of things. And just to debunk something for the listeners, Crystal actually sent me, or InnerBuddies actually sent me a test. And I did this test at home. I went to the toilet. I put some data into the toilet. I scooped some data off, sent it to Crystal and her buddies. And I think 4 to 6 weeks later, I got an email saying your results are there. So the idea is in a minute, Crystal, that you demonstrate the dashboard and kind of walk us through, hopefully, my very diverse microbiome. I haven't looked at the results yet.
Okay.
I'm kind of, I hope some of the hard work has paid off. Fermented foods, healthy eating. But I did note the time when I took the test was after Christmas. So there was the odd glass of alcohol, a lot of cake. I have family in Germany, they're very like cake and sugar heavy. So I'm curious. I wouldn't be surprised. I want to find out what kind of classroom, if it's a diverse classroom or if it's one kid sitting on its own kind of thing.
Okay. Well, let's see. Shall we?
Okay.
This is you. Yes, this is you. Just to make sure. I was looking because I'm going to compare both of ours, but
okay, nice. Oh, okay.
Not my dashboard, but our food diary a little bit later. But
okay, cool.
This is you. So maybe I can quickly give a very brief overview for the listeners first, if you're also watching it. So this is what we call our online dashboard, where we look at things like your bacteria diversity, which we were speaking about in Fact or Fiction, your bacteria levels. So these are around 35 bacteria that are very prevalent in research that are studied. And this list was compiled by our founder, Dr. Koen Venema. He is brilliant. He has worked in the field of gut microbiology his entire life. And so he decided on what bacteria we should display in your bacteria levels. We also look at some measurements. So this is data we get from the survey I was talking about. looking at your BMI, your waist to hip ratio, nutrient intake. This is from your 3-day food diary. Your 3-day food diary gives some tips and tricks. Yeah, exactly. Okay, this is what you had to eat. This is good. What are some tweaks we can do? And then supplements advice. But we'll go into all of this. Where should we start? Bacteria diversity, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see.
Whoa.
So this is your bacteria diversity.
Mm-hmm.
Your Shannon's index is the one that is really studied in literature when they're talking about diversity. Mostly we're looking at Shannon's index. We also display 2 other data points to kind of give a better insight. So one is your observed OTUs. So this is how many different types you can think, how many different types we have. And then your Pylo's evenness is how evenly are they spread. So you can have 100 types, right? But it's not spread super evenly. So we look at all of these data points to give kind of a bigger, better overview. So my question to you, what is your feeling of your Shannon's index or your diversity? Is this what you thought it would be? Because you said you haven't looked at your dashboard yet.
I'd say it's good, but I'm only getting started.
Yes.
So I remember when I looked at post antibiotics, the Shannon's index one was yeah. So basically that analogy of a classroom, you walk in and there's one lonely kid. Whereas now there are different types of kids from different countries, or maybe even to use an analogy, instead of a monoculture of just banana trees, there's the beginnings of a jungle kind of thing going on. That's kind of how I imagine it. So it's encouraging, but of course you want to get to that grade. So I'm also very keen to get your steer afterwards. Like, how does one get to grade? And also, how common is this kind of what you see here? Is this, would you say, common, or is actually be aware more common, like in terms of what you've tested?
Wow, that's a good question. It's all over the place. That's my answer.
Okay.
It's all over the place. We see a lot in be aware. Great.
Yeah.
I don't see that very often. Let's say that. So more so, I would say kind of where you are. We do have some individuals that are in like this region, let's say. If you're in great, then I know, okay, wow, you're nailing it on probably all aspects of health and wellness, right? So yeah.
I want to get there. So maybe we'll add each other on WhatsApp. I'll send you pictures of my plates, and you can just salute me or not salute me, and then like try harder, Peter. That's not good.
Yeah.
But okay.
Okay.
And what about the OTUs? That looks kind of quite leveled in the middle.
Absolutely. This is great to see as well. So this is species richness. So there's a number of different types of bacteria. So this is good to see because of your recent, I would say, antibiotics. This was it mid last year, or when was this?
Yeah.
Okay, well, you're not even a year out, so you are heading in the right direction, I would say. If I'm looking at this, we're slowly getting there, but it's really different from person to person. How long is it actually going to take? And you are making the right steps by really focusing on your diet, having these fermented foods, prebiotics, etc. So heading in the right direction, and I would say test in, let's call it 6 months from now, and hopefully we're in this region over here.
In the survey, you don't ask about alcohol use, do you?
We did in the past, but we don't anymore. No.
Because I thought it was an interesting avenue, because I always wonder when you have like friends around and you have a couple of bottles of wine and you have a really good time, and wine is also supposedly healthy, yada, yada, yada. But I'm convinced that kind of also contributes to these are Peter's grain of salt assumptions. I assume that alcohol might be linked to leaky gut and those kind of things, that it kind of does, your gut can be irritated from alcohol.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also want to add a kind of a disclaimer here. We focus a lot on nutrition, right? And specifically at InnerBuddies, but there's more than just nutrition that goes into the health of your gut microbiome. We were just speaking about stress, for example, and how much of an impact that has. So that's one, stress. But your sleep, your exercise, how active are you, the types of exercise you do. So there's so many different things that also go into this. That's not just diet. But
I
nutrition
think
has a huge impact.
that's such an important message, because also in my kind of throwing my life around, changing everything so far, I was always looking for the one answer, the one thing that would, where I would lose the weight, or the one thing that would make the eczema go away. And it's so difficult. Well, now I'm getting used to lots of little changes, lifestyle changes that then compound. But when you mentioned sleeps, stress, exercise, we spoke about alcohol, those kind of things. So it's almost like this reframing for me that I'm going through and have gone through, that it's not specifically one thing, but it's doing a lot of small things, right? Consistently over time, that hopefully you'll then move towards the great category.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's such a like sober-minded way of looking at the health of your gut microbiome, but also your general health, right? I don't think I know that most people look for a magic bullet. They look for
Mm,
this one thing, as you were saying, and that's just not how it works when it comes
mm,
to health and wellness. And of course it doesn't. I mean, the human body is so intricate and complex and beautifully complex, and all things kind of communicate with one another. So it's so much more than this one thing, and it's a forever thing. So it's these lifestyle changes you're doing forever that right
mm,
now I want to live, I want to feel good. I want to have,
mm,
good mood, clear mind. I want to have energy, you name it. Then you need to look at all the aspects of your life. For me, stress was a huge one. And I could also see it in my
mm.
gut microbiome. And one thing I really had to, I mean, I would say I've been on a healthy diet my entire life. I quite enjoy it, but there's other parts that I knew I could definitely improve on. And I did see a change the health of my gut microbiome as well. So yeah.
It's absolutely fascinating. And if you look at Pelilu evenness,
Kilos
so that's
evenness.
the different, that's, yeah, that's the different, how many students from different countries there are in the classroom.
Yes. So how
Could you see it like that?
you could see it like
Yeah.
that, yeah. So
Okay.
how evenly it's spread, yeah. So if you have, let's call it, um, let's let's just simplify 10 different types of species. So this is types. We have 10 different
Hmm.
types. Within those types, if it's spread evenly, you have the same in each. So we have 10 different types. Within this type, we have 100 of you, 100 of you, 100 of you, for example, versus you have 10
Yep.
different types, and this one makes up 90%, and then a little
Yeah.
bit of the rest. Yeah.
Fascinating. So out of 10, say 10 was great. If you looked at my entire microbiome and 0 was be aware, where would you say, would it be a 4 or 5? What would you say?
I would say so. Probably around, I would give you a 5. And just looking at
Yeah.
just looking at your diversity, right? Because this is just
Yeah.
one thing.
Yeah.
We're also going to look at your bacteria levels, which I think are really
Let's do
good.
it. Let's do it. Let's do
Yeah.
it.
Okay, fantastic. So let's go. So we did bacteria diversity. Let's go to
Yep.
bacteria levels. I probably won't spend too. There's a lot here. There's like 35 bacteria here. So
I love their names. They're so random, different types of, some of them sound like dinosaur names, you know.
yeah,
It's yeah, almost could be dinosaur names,
yeah.
but okay, sorry, yeah,
It's
go
really
on.
quite out there. When I did my thesis, I had to obviously present my findings, and I went onto YouTube and practiced saying the words of these bacteria. I don't know how many times. And then I got into my thesis,
Wow.
and I choked up. I was like, I don't know how to pronounce this on some of them, but anyway, so I'm going to give you an overview of how we kind of categorize these. So
Mhm.
you start off with good bacteria. So within literature, these are known to have beneficial effects on the human body, on the host, is what you would call the human. Starting off with Akkermansia, we give a little bit of what is this linked to. This one is specifically linked to weight reduction support, also your gut barrier strength. If you just go quickly through these good bacteria, which is what I'll do here, most of yours are within normal. We have great. We have
What's the great one? I want to know the name. Bifidobacterium.
bifidobacterium, and this is widely studied. This is one that has been studied for who knows how long, along with lactobacillus, and the sky is up and coming. I love this bacteria.
So if Bifidobacterium were a comic book hero, like what would the power be?
If I had to choose one for
Yeah,
Bifidobacterium, immune strength. So the power would be
really
really helping your immune system. Yeah, yeah. Um,
cool.
okay, let's go through. I think it's gonna take way too much time to go through every single bacteria. So what
Yeah, but you're giving us a super overview. So anybody who does this test know that you can hover over the information eye, look at it, and then maybe open up a biology book, or maybe you have some recommendations for like, is there a bacteria dictionary?
That's a fantastic question with which I'm not sure.
I'm seeing a new product for InnerBuddies. Like, maybe it would be a long study, or a long dictionary.
Yeah.
But I'd want to look these guys up,
Yeah.
and I'd want to see the comic book powers that they have.
You know what would be a great resource is AI, actually. Put it
Mm.
into AI, ask what superhero, what does it do, and you'll get some
I'm
fun
glad,
answers.
because that's exactly what I've done for this. I didn't want to mention it because I thought you'd like shake your head like, no, no, no. But that's also a good tip. Put the name in there and just say, like, explain it in simple terms.
Yeah.
What does it do, and what foods is it attributed to, for instance?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Cool.
Okay, so that's your good bacteria. We'll go
Now
into
to the
now
villains.
to the villains. So your bad bacteria, I mean, here you can see fantastic. So great, we want these as low as possible, right? That's why great is on the left side here, which at the top it was on the right. Fantastic, fantastic, fantastic. Yeah. So overall, your bad bacteria looks,
So the goodies are winning the fight at the moment, you can say.
yes, yes, you can say that. Indeed. And then we have another category called your other relevant bacteria. Why do we call it other relevant? It's because it's been studied, but we aren't sure exactly yet what way. So that's why we say you're either lower than normal compared to our data, you're normal, so yours looks similar to our data, or you're higher than normal. Is this good or bad? We aren't for certain yet, because sometimes it could be either way, but we still display this for the customer, and we also give some information.
So almost like these honorary mentions, like they haven't been studied enough, but you guys have a gut feeling that they're important and you want to put them out there. But
Exactly.
maybe literature still has to catch up and the studies have to catch up.
Exactly. Exactly. So
Wow.
this is
Methanobrevi
a
Bacter. Whoa.
Methanobrevibacter.
Do you have a favorite one in terms of just the sound of it, or the length of it, or the
Oh gosh.
if you could have a T-shirt with one bacteria on it, which one would it be?
Bifidobacterium, the one that you're super, super high in, actually.
Nice.
So that was, where are we now? Bifido,
So the
this one, this guy. Yep, yep, indeed. Okay, what we can do, which is what I
Yep.
want to do next. So your bacteria levels just gives you, like you saw, this huge list of our approximately 35 bacteria. What we do is the ones that have been studied a lot, one, and we know through literature that they are impacted by certain foods. What we do with those is we have something called our 7 categories, which you can see here on the right. So
Mm.
we categorize them into 3 headings. So gut health.
Mm-hmm.
Within gut health, we have 3: immune strength,
Mm-hmm.
your gut wall strength, your weight reduction support.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, we have fiber degradation. So this is gas production. And then we
Mm-hmm.
have gut challenges, which we focus on potential colon problems, infection alarm, and fat alarm. If you are too low or too high, we give a
Mm-hmm.
little warning signal. So I would love to go through yours for a second.
Yes.
So let's go to immune strength. So these 2 bacteria, I also want to make a disclaimer here. Just because Bifidobacterium and Lactobacillus, these 2, are within the category immune strength, that does not mean that it is limited to immune strength. It can
Mm.
also it can and does impact other parts of the human body, the host as well. So that's a little bit of a disclaimer. For you, as we already know, your bifidobacterium is great. Your lactobacillus is a little bit on the low. I have a feeling why, this could be.
Wow.
So lactobacillus is typically one that we see in fermented dairy products. You indicated
I threw dairy out the window. I threw dairy out the window, and I don't know. I mean, like when you have chronic hand eczema, the one thing you're always looking for are your triggers, and it's also understudied and it's not clearly correlated. And I also never knew like what I'm ingesting, how long does it show up on your skin, how long does it take before it shows up. But I did this food intolerance test where basically all categories are listed, and I think the way the body reacts to them was scored out of like, I think it was 200 points, and the dairy products all scored on 200.
wow.
So I think my body was reacting to dairy as like an invader, like a stressor. But that could be, and again, the grain of salt, Peter's talking about medical stuff, that could be, and I thought, because I was in an inflamed and stressed state anyway, and then the body just chooses anything, like it goes haywire, and like, okay, dairy's the culprit, because there was nothing else to pick, because I was fine with dairy, and then suddenly mass stress levels, burnout, etc. I was in the obese category, loads of kind of inflammation going on, and I think that it just chose dairy as the culprit. Sorry, that's a lot to depick, and I don't expect you to depict all of that, but to your point, like, okay, you mentioned there is a correlation between lactobacillus and kind of dairy, or it's found predominantly in dairy. So your kefir, your Greek yogurts, your milk, your caramel milk, and those kind of things.
Absolutely, yes, the fermented ones. I want to touch on something here. So kefir is one that we were speaking about, is a fermented milk, right? It's not the thickness of yogurt. It's made a bit different. What research shows us actually is that individuals that suffer from lactose intolerance, typically to a large extent, can tolerate kefir. Why? Because during the fermentation process, specifically of kefir, this lactose to a huge extent is broken down. So I don't want to give you medical advice here, but it could be
but I will
something
check
you
it.
might want to slowly see. If I introduce, do I have these negative reactions to it?
No, but I'm super happy with that, because it confirms what I wanted to do anyway. It was pretty expensive, the test to do, but I thought I need to do it again because I need to see if it's calmed down. And I'd love Greek yogurt, feta. I mean, these are all things like I'm getting a rash just thinking about never being able to eat them again. So I'd be so happy if I could slowly reintroduce. So what I'm taking away from what you're saying is maybe it's a good time for me to take another assessment, to have a look at some of these values have calmed down, and if there's indeed a difference between like sour milk products and lactose, because I think they were rated in this test separately. So I'd jump for joy if I could tuck into kefir again. But okay, wow. I mean, and is there a way for, say, someone's completely like dairy is not an issue, not an option for them, can they still somehow get this, pump up the levels of lactobacillus?
So it's not just through dairy. I mean, that is a big one. But we also have, if they are really low, for example, you are in Be Aware, we could start looking at a probiotic supplement. Lactobacillus and bifidobacterium, the two you see on the screen, these are the two that are to a huge extent used for supplement production of probiotics. Also food. If we're talking about, for example, like I said now, this yogurt and kefir, we use these lactic acid bacteria. But in supplements, these are the two big ones as well. So that is the good thing.
That's another option.
That is another option. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
So this is your immune strength. Maybe good to also show everyone, show the listeners that this is kind of what you can expect to see if you are low. So Peter's low in lactobacillus, so he gets a little exclamation mark, and then we say, okay, what foods do we encourage that can improve lactobacillus. And then we put them into these different categories. We have different beverages. There you go. We have different condiments and seasonings. Legumes is a big one. Miso and natto, these are two that are fermented as well. Different types of vegetables, etc. So this is what you could expect to.
The household menu is going to change a bit. I love this. So I think I'd choose lactobacillus as my t-shirt because that's something I'm focusing on.
Yeah, indeed. Fantastic. So that is immune strength, and maybe we can go through two more if you want.
Yeah.
This would be the same for the rest. So for example, gut wall strength is also one. Faecalibacterium is quite normal. Your eubacterium is a bit lower for the specific category, gut wall strength. Again, they don't just impact gut wall strength, they also impact other parts of the human body. And here again, we'll go through different foods to encourage to increase your amount of both of these bacteria.
So I need a front and back on the t-shirt, lactobacillus and eubacterium. Okay.
Yes. And for gut wall strength, we can also get into this a little bit later, but one of the things that I would recommend for you is for your is the incorporation of, you can actually see here, butyrate. So how do we get butyrate is from...
I know. Old potatoes? Well, no, leftover potatoes from like a few days ago in the fridge, and green bananas.
Correct. So yeah, absolutely.
Ding, ding.
Ding, ding.
Okay,
So
cool.
green bananas, because time-resistant starch. And then we have
Yeah.
cooked and cooled potatoes. So if I cook potatoes now, cool them overnight, I can warm them up tomorrow. That's fine. They don't have to be eaten.
It's important that you said that, because otherwise people would be like, wait, just potatoes in the fridge? Peter said potatoes in the fridge and then you eat them.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. Okay,
We've had actually a lot of people reach out to us about that. And I'm like, okay, I should clarify on our recommendation. You can warm it up again. But yeah, cold rice, don't do that. But
no.
But yeah, so you eat some prebiotic foods, your body cannot digest it. So what does it do? It goes to your large intestines where your buddies live, and your inner buddies, some of them, not all of them, can take the prebiotic food, type of fiber, and it digests it, and it creates something called short chain fatty acids, one of which is butyrate. And short chain fatty acids are phenomenal, not just for your gut microbiome, for your everything to do with health. Love short chain fatty acids. One of the things is it improves your gut wall strength. And this is the lining that I was talking about that protects everything outside of your intestines, so your entire body, from potential harm within your intestine. So it's really these, like a barrier. And you want it to be strong. It is always semi-permeable because you obviously have to absorb nutrients that you eat, but it needs to be strong enough. If it becomes too permeable, it can just let any toxins, some small food particles, whatever it is,
into the
bloodstream, and you don't want that. Then you get the systemic
leaky gut. That's what's
yes.
That's what's known as leaky gut.
Yes. So leaky gut is not a medical what do you call it, diagnosis, but it is a term that a lot of individuals use to describe what I just said, is when that permeability in your gut becomes too permeable and it lets things through that it shouldn't. And then you get the systemic inflammation, it impacts your brain health, all of the things. So one of the ways we can really assist your gut wall strength is through short chain fatty acid production through prebiotic foods. Yeah.
Super cool. I love it. Thanks for this. I'm loving this. Yeah.
Okay, and then maybe we do one from, let's do gas production, because you also have one here. These two...
So does this mean my wife's going to love this? Okay, yeah.
These two bacteria are both in your other bacteria. You can see we just have lower than normal, normal, and higher than normal. But they are known to cause gas production. You are lower than normal, so should be okay.
So this means, Pete, the absence of farting?
The absence of farting, yes.
I want to see my wife's test. I'm going to order another test. Like, I have a suspicion.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
go. Yeah.
This is very funny though. If you read this little piece, our professor wrote this. And what does he say? You produce so much gas every day. I don't know, what is it, 40 liters or so, 80 liters. Here it is, right here. 80 liters of gas a day. Okay. If your body didn't absorb this properly by your gut bacteria, you would be farting with every single step you took. So thank goodness for these bacteria that absorb it. We exhale a lot of these gases. Just a funny thing that he says as a fun fact when he's on podcasts, which I thought I'd bring to you guys. So you're welcome. But we do give some guidelines here for consumers that maybe struggle with bloating. We have a lot of our customers actually that have this issue. They struggle with bloating. So we give some, well, this is a lot actually, but some tips that might help. And it's not for everyone. For example, reduce your consumption of carbonated drinks. This isn't for everyone, but if that is something you do and you have bloating, this could help if you reduce it, for example. So we do give some tips and tricks here as well.
I love how you guys do that. The so what? So you get the results. Okay, so what do you do now? Well, immediately you're like, chill out, guys. We got you. Here are the steps. Like, try some of these.
Yeah, exactly. And shall we do one more gut challenge?
Sure, but these are then something that aren't red flagged, or there is no exclamation mark.
Exactly,
okay.
And I'm not surprised by this because remember when we went through your gut, your bacteria list, none of your bad bacteria were too high. You were either in a normal category or in great. So they were all low, which is fantastic. And that's why you don't see any exclamation marks here. But let's do colon problems. So this one is called fusobacterium. So you are quite low in fusobacterium, which is fantastic. This bacteria has actually been linked to colon cancer. So that's why we put it under potential colon problems. And it feeds off of ultra-processed meats, red meats, these deep-fried meat products, etc.
Can you give an example?
Sausage is an ultra-processed meat. What else? The sandwich meats. I don't know what people call them. But
like salami, ham from the supermarket in a plastic wrapping.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, yeah. These are ultra-processed meats. So within our household, we try to limit this as much as possible. So we don't purchase these types of meats as much as possible. Everything in moderation, but okay. And if this wasn't Be Aware, same situation, you would have received foods to increase as well as foods to limit. So if this was too in Be Aware, we would say foods to limit, and then you would see things like these ultra-processed meats, for example.
So the Italians, they can still eat their mortadella, but maybe not the ones from the supermarket within plastic wrapping and those kind of things. So also looking in terms of how is this thing produced, and is it produced mass scale in a factory, or is this, organic from a butcher, someone who has a farm, etc.
Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, I would say ultra processed is probably ultra processed regardless of where it comes from. Some probably better than others, but why do we call it ultra processed is because of the additives that go into producing this meat product, for example.
So it's not necessarily the meat itself, it's the additives or what they do with the meat in terms of the antibiotics,
the processing part, right? So even like smoking, if you're smoking a meat, you're processing it before, right? You're adding these smoke flavors, chemicals to it. Nitrates is a big one. So in sausages, in these deli meats, they're adding nitrates to it. There's a lot of research coming out. This is actually a hot topic in the nutrition field.
Wow.
So yeah, in general, I would say as much as you can, try and limit your consumption of these foods. Yeah. Okay.
I love it. Thanks for the demo. So we walk through my microbiome, the diversity, the different bacteria levels. Crystal's going to get a t-shirt. I'm going to have a t-shirt with the front and back. And we looked at some kind of red flags, call it exclamation mark, something I need to pay attention to within my gut health. But also we spoke about fiber and gas production. And then Crystal also walked us through some potential gut challenges. I also see, and that's something I'm quite proud about now, I just see your measurements. So I had to fill out a survey, and in the past I was in the obese category, and I'm almost flown over the overweight category, and this was after Christmas, so I'm probably in the green. I should do another test, but that's very motivating for me to see, because I was in that obese category.
Wow.
So that's nice to see.
Huge difference. Huge difference. You are basically in green, 25.1. So green would be 24.99. So
Wow.
you're
I mean, I've lost 30 kilos now, so
yeah.
that's my daughter, my son, and probably a crate of beer in terms of weight.
That is insane if you put it that way. Wow.
Okay, then we get to the food diary. It says your nutrient intake.
Yes.
Okay.
So this, I don't think we need to spend too much time on this, but what do we do here? We look at, based on your 3-day food diary, we calculate your calorie intake, how many calories that you actually consume on average over 3 days. And then we also see how is this distributed in terms of carbohydrates, dietary fiber. This makes me very happy to see, by the way. Your fat intake, saturated fat intake, protein, and your salt. So we get all of these calculations from our nutrient database, of course. And then we also give our recommendations. And these recommendations are based on the nutrition guidelines. So your calorie intake is based on many things. It's based on your gender, your height, your weight, your activity level. I think these are the 4, and your age. Yes, these are the 5 ones that we look at for recommended calorie intake. However, this is to keep your current weight as it is based on your current activity level. So that it is nuanced, right?
I love this.
Yes. And you are below, so you are already in a calorie deficit. And then we also give consumers a little piece here. If you want to gain or lose weight, it is generally advised to increase or decrease your calorie intake by 250 to 500 based on this guy right here. But this obviously changes as your level of activity changes, etc. So nuanced again. We then look at, like I said, these nutrients. Big one that I want to point out is your dietary fiber. So this is huge for gut health, but also just overall human health. You are in great, which is fantastic because
I read a book on fiber. It's called Fiber Fueled. It's by an American gastroenterologist. And so this was part of me going down that rabbit hole. But like, I'm happy that it's great, because that paid off. It was a big book to read. Yeah, we eat a lot of fiber, so loads of veggies all the time. Yeah.
that's fantastic. Most of the population does not even close to meet their fiber intake. And this is one, when I taught in university, I also did classes for individuals suffering from like hypertension, diabetes, etc. And did some education and coaching for these individuals. And I would always hammer down on fiber intake. So it's very important for your gut microbiome, but also so important for so many other functions within your body. So great job on reaching
Cool.
your goal here.
Thank you. Golden star for Peter.
Golden
I
star
love
for
it.
you. Yes. So that's about that. So I think we can carry on. This just
Yeah.
gives some insight for the customers of how they're doing.
Any last message on the dashboard? You've given us a flyover. Thank you so much. I mean, it's like looking into what goes on the inside, what kind of garden you have in your stomach, what your buddies are. I love it. Anything else listeners might need to know about the dashboard?
We didn't have some supplement advice, but maybe I can just give a last message about this. This is where we will look at your prebiotic and probiotic recommendations.
So this is like an intervention, basically. You guys say, like, if you need help, diet is one option, but if you need a booster kind of thing, this is what we recommend.
Absolutely. And we also focus on food first approach. So as you just said, diet, yes, but if you also need to supplement that, I call it your insurance policy. So we take multivitamins as an insurance policy, but that doesn't mean that I just cut out all fruits and vegetables.
Yeah, exactly.
Same with supplement recommendations, yeah.
But with lactobacillus, in my case, being low, would you say, and as you said, probiotics is an option for me if I wanted a boost?
Yes. And I'll take 2 seconds to show you what I would recommend. So an important thing I want to mention before we carry on, probiotics is strain specific. So you cannot just take a probiotic and think it will be a magic bullet for all issues. Probiotics are studied for specific issues. So this one is studied for stress. This one is studied for antibiotics. This one is studied for whatever. We look at that in our recommendations. For you, we looked at cognitive function and stress, basically, and we gave you some strains that have shown in literature to benefit these areas. There are overlaps here. So for you, you can see this one, Lactobacillus plantarum DR7 is a strain. You find them in both of these. So this is one that I would look for if I were you. And then these three were studied together. You can find them together in products. We also see them here. So this is kind of a one product with a strain combination, as well as these three last ones. You can also see, you find them as an overlap in both of our recommendations for use.
Can you help me just understand the two categories? You said one kind of category is depression, anxiety, stress, and the other one is
cognitive function.
Cognitive function. So what does that mean in my case?
So in your survey, I think you had a high stress level. If you said I am stressed, then you would, that's why we showed this for you. And you also clicked, I want more information on how I can improve my cognitive function. And so that's why this is shown for you.
Okay, good.
If you clicked on other things in the survey, that would have shown up as well if we have literature linking certain strains to certain issues. Yeah.
But one could say that lactobacillus can have an impact on cognitive function and stress levels. Absolutely. Or stress levels could have a negative impact on bacteria levels.
Absolutely. Both ways. Yep.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, cool.
Yes. Good.
Brain health. I also want to turn to my brain. Good.
Yeah, and that is it. I think for dashboard, there's some other things, but
next topic would be the food diary, I suppose.
Yes.
So I filled in a survey about what I eat over 3 days. I was quite particular in listing these things, and I think we're going to look at that, and then Crystal's going to show us like an example diary of what food in the Kriek household looks like. And I'm so excited about that as well.
So am I. Okay, I actually have this pulled up already. I think this one is yours. Yes. Do you want to do day 1, day 2, or day 3?
No, it doesn't matter really, because they were all and this one says burger. So let's talk about this one.
Let's talk about this one.
My focus, and just to give the audience some background, my focus in these last 3 years was a lot of sugar, carbs and sugar. So my breakfasts was a kind of section of my day that I focused on. I didn't want to overwhelm myself with the entire menu in the Weller household being different. I just wanted to focus on breakfast. And so in the past, I would make granola, homemade granola with honey, syrup, and it would be delicious, right? And I'm not bashing granola, but just I realized for me, sugar was an issue. Also through the other things I took throughout my day, I had this suspicion that my body was fighting sugar like an invader again, and so I completely redesigned my breakfast, and now it's Austrian pumpernickel. You didn't have that in your drop down, so I kind of did rye bread. For our Dutch friends, it's roggebrood. And typically I have that with something that makes it exciting, because that and peanut butter, for instance, 3 days in a row, I'd be miserable. So what I typically do is I make muhamra, which is you get it in Syria, but it's a kind of a tomato-based paste with paprikas, walnuts, you have pomegranate molasses, these kind of things. So this is something I make on a regular basis. Week 1, hummus, week 2, muhamra, week 3, baba ganoush, these kind of things, just to pimp my pumpernickel, my rye bread, my rocha brot. And then on top, eggs and sauerkraut. That's a standard breakfast that I love. I think is kind of healthy. It works well for me. I'm not saying join the club. Works well for me. And yeah, I like sauerkraut, so I sprinkle that on top. The next week I do kimchi on top, whatever we have in the fridge. But that's a kind of breakfast where I don't feel like I'm missing out on stuff. Even if my wife's tucking into granola, American pancakes, I partake as well. But I'm usually keep it quite. Yeah, I'm happy with my breakfast. Yeah.
Would you say that this is a breakfast that you have kind of on repeat, or do you change things up a little bit?
No, I have it on repeat. I change with hummus instead of muhamra. I change with those kind of things, baba ganoush, but typically eggs, rye bread, brot, pumpernickel, and a kind of a fermented topping. Sometimes I join the club. It's so fun to cook with my daughter pancakes, American fluffy pancakes. I'll have some too, but I just kind of watch out with the sugar.
So let's start with breakfast. I think this is a fantastic choice. Breakfast choice. We have some whole grain option here, eggs, brilliant protein, which is good. You were saying, if you struggle with sugar, to start a protein-rich breakfast, I think is fantastic choice. I have never tried this, but the way that I understand it is we have vegetables in here, we have some nuts, fantastic, and then sauerkraut is your fermented option, which we've already discussed is great. What I love to do in these tips and tricks that I give to customers, as well as when I was in private practice as a dietitian, can you think of ways to spice this up? So we have a fantastic base here. How do we spice this up? How do we add some gut health points to this breakfast? What do you think?
Well, in an ideal world, I have a big cup of kefir. That's what I did in the past, right? And also, if we think about diversity, yeah, I'm kind of changing. I'm tweaking things here and there, hummus instead of muhamra. But I've had mornings where I've had a salad. And maybe that's something you can debunk. Back in the day, I would look forward to granola. And now, since this kind of breakfast intervention, I would look forward to this, or I would look forward to salad. I'd have a salad for breakfast, and my wife would be like shaking her head, like, tucking into cereal. And she looks at me like, you freak. But I have the feeling that my microbiome is shouting out for those things, or wants those things, that it's being given, it kind of wants more of. I don't know if that's another one of Peter's assumptions.
Yeah, no, that is a great assumption, I would say. I am very similar actually, is I can eat salad for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So one of my favorite foods. But yeah, my question to you earlier in terms of, is this a type of breakfast that is basically on repeat? The reason I asked this twofold. One, this is a great base. As I said, this is a fantastic start. What our gut microbiome loves is as diverse as possible.
So eating the rainbow. So
Eating the rainbow.
your plate, yeah. Either in days, the days being different colors, or when you look at the breakfast plate, there being multiple colors on the plate.
Absolutely. So I love to think, when I look at my plate of oatmeal or salad or whatever it is, how can I spice this up? What can I add to this? Small little things. For example, you have your bread, probably on top you have your paste, your egg, and your sauerkraut. What can I add to this? I can add a mixture of seeds, 5 different seeds, for example, a little bit sprinkled on top. I can add a herb mixture, maybe some basil or some whatever is nice for you
Yeah,
to
yeah.
eat. These small little things we don't even think of, but you're adding so many gut health points here because you're adding this diverse diet in small little things. Maybe I can have a side of berries, 3 strawberries, whatever it is, or mixed berries, even better because you have different types, right? So what can I add to spice up my meal to have as many different things on the plate, plant foods, as possible? That's how I like to
Those are
think
so
about it.
easy tweaks for me. Like some spices, I have a huge spice closet. I love cooking curries, right? So adding some spices. You mentioned adding some herbs, but also berries. Like who wouldn't want a bowl of blueberries, raspberries, and blackberries or something, brambles?
Absolutely.
I mean, my daughter would probably sneak all of them before I'd get a chance to eat them. But okay, cool, noted. Thank you for the comment.
Yeah, and one fun thing that we also do when it comes to eggs, because you have egg for breakfast. I'm not sure if you have the scrambled or whatever way.
We have a pancake pan, an American pancake pan. It has like 4 perfect circles in there. And so we use that. But I actually now discovered, hey, I can use those for my eggs too. So I crack them in. They're perfectly round eggs,
Yeah, yeah.
They make my daughter and me happy. But that's a quick way we prepare them. But yeah, scrambled is also often the case. Yeah.
If you have scrambled, a fun trick on the same route, like I say I like to spice things up, is instead of just scrambled egg, what can I add to it? Lentils is one of the things. So it sounds, you know, silly, but just adding 1 tablespoon of lentils, huge amount of fiber. We have more protein. You have these gut benefits that I'm talking about just by looking at this instead of just egg. What can I add to this? What types of
Mm.
spices? Can I add some legumes? Can I add whatever it is? So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's
And also, what comes to mind is setting yourself up for success. Like if you have leftovers, having an organized fridge where you can just quickly, if you had lentil soup or you had lentil curry or something, just use some of that. I mean, some people will be running for the hills. I don't blame you. But I think for me, that would be a quick cheat to be able to do that, to just quickly spice things up a bit.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But fantastic base, as I said, this is a great breakfast base.
Cool. Let's do one more, lunch or dinner.
You choose. What one do you think? Did we do dinner?
Yeah, let's do dinner. So lunch is kimchi, cabbage, apple vinegar. So red cabbage I tweak with, or I kind of grate the red cabbage, add apple cider vinegar, nuts, almonds, seeds, sunflower seeds. Okay, so I think you're pretty happy with lunch, I'm
Very happy.
guessing.
Very happy with lunch. I think we can tick this one off.
So the question can also be how to, I mean, sometimes you also need to like just give yourself a break. That's why there's a beef burger there with sweet potato fries. But there's also a way to tweak this. I'm thinking ahead. Your comment would be, how could you tweak this? This is definitely something not on repeat in the Weller household, but it's a treat. But I could also see us making a burger sauce that includes kimchi or sauerkraut or the kind of slaw, those kind of things. And yeah, I mean, a burger is holy for me, so I don't want to tweak it too much. But I think with the ideas I have, kimchi mayonnaise, that kind of stuff, I think I'd be on the right track to tweaking a burger. Yeah, and onions, cooked onions,
Absolutely.
or even like red raw onions. I mean, if we're thinking of colors again, um, yeah, and maybe even like cooked veggies from the oven previously that you have to leftover, sweet paprika, those kind of things. I don't think you'd be doing a burger injustice by adding some of those.
Absolutely. So fantastic way that you just went through that. That is exactly how I would have done it as well. So how can I take this thing I love? What can I add to
Mm.
it? How can I spice it
Yep.
up in a way that's,
Yep.
for example, choosing whole grain bread instead of white,
Mm.
but you are gluten intolerant, right?
Aspects of it, however, in this food intolerance test, it didn't score that highly. It was like an irritant. So my wife, I'm so happy, I'm so lucky. She went down the rabbit hole of baking. So she makes sourdough bread. So she also makes brioche buns, and she can make them for burgers, and she paints them with egg and sesame seeds. They look $1,000,000.
Lucky
The
man. You are a lucky
I
man.
know. And the problem is the neighbors have seen these and they're like, where do you get them? And then in the beginning I said, like, the French bakery, I pay €4 a brioche bun. And they were like, oh, wow, but they do look great. I'm like, no, my wife makes them. But they're like, no way. And so now they've got like this bread making club, a mafia, the bread making mafia, I call them around. Yeah.
Very
But they're
funny.
all doing sourdough because
Wow.
of, yeah,
Yeah, great
my
option.
wife.
Great option. So lucky man. Okay, so there you go. Tick for that. Tick for your sourdough. And then exactly what you did. We have a beef burger, perfectly fine. Everything in moderation. I truly believe that.
Yep.
Enjoy the foods you enjoy and spice it up with some healthy benefits. Am I adding vegetables to this? onions, as you said, that's a prebiotic food, which we were talking about. Fantastic. Maybe have some garlicky something in your sauce. Another prebiotic.
Garlic never ruins anything, so
Never,
good one.
never too much garlic. So yeah, great way. And then you have some snacks, apples, banana. Banana, we have as green as possible.
Yeah,
Then you have the
yeah.
resistant starch. Yep.
Maybe I'll do 3 ripe ones and 1 green one. I'll kind of, change it up a little bit.
Yeah.
If we reflect back to the Mediterranean diet, I mean, if I'm looking at it through that lens, I'm not seeing any fish here. We do use a lot of like extra virgin olive oil. We have really good stuff, but I'm not seeing fish. And let's see, what else does the Mediterranean? Yeah, I suppose lots of vegetables, lots of salads. They do pasta, but often I've found as a kind of a side dish, not the main attraction. They have it as a kind of a side almost in Italy, and really good ingredients there. Like the tomatoes they buy are really good tomatoes, or they even grow them their own,
Yeah.
But yeah, how would you look at comparing this to a Mediterranean diet?
Great. For example, you have nuts here, you have almonds, you have seeds, and nuts and seeds is a big one. Fish, obviously, as you mentioned, olive oil, which I already said that you guys do have. They also have red wine as part of the Mediterranean diet, and depends how you look at this, if we should add it or we shouldn't add it. And then just a vast, diverse field of fruits and vegetables as well, whole grains, etc. So I think you're on a good track. Yeah.
Now, show us yours.
Yes.
Because I get to comment on yours now. We're flipping roles. I like that.
This is mine that I did in the summer of 2023, I think, when I took my first test. But as you can see, I did a smoothie for breakfast. So I do want to show you in terms of diversity. This is your whole, yeah, exactly. Yeah. This is your whole food diary. This is my food diary. So,
show off.
And this is just small things. You can see small little bits that I add to spice things up, right? So for breakfast, I did a berry, banana, seed smoothie. I probably also put walnuts in here, and I forgot to put it on the breakfast, but I just throw everything in there. As many
Greek
different
yogurt
types.
as well.
Greek yogurt as well. Sometimes I do kefir and Greek yogurt, or either or. I love coffee, so that's this.
But I love that though, because that, if I think about my children, that would also go down really well with them. Like who wouldn't like a berry smoothie? And we
Absolutely.
have chia seeds, hemp seeds. We retired them. They're in the closet with all the granola that we don't longer use. But okay, I'm going to break them out again and make a smoothie. Okay, I love this. Yeah, my daughter would go nuts for a berry smoothie for sure.
For kids, I mean, this is such an easy way to hide things that they don't like, right? Yep. Is pop it in a smoothie. In a smoothie, you can add
bit of spinach,
20 different things. Yeah, bit of spinach, exactly. So that's one I love when I'm just wanting to increase the amount of plants in my diet. Smoothie. Yeah. Then bread. This is what I typically have for lunch at work, along with a fruit usually. So whole grain with some hummus. So we have these chickpeas, cucumber, rockets, some cheese, tomato. I usually also then will have an apple or a pear, which is also great for the gut microbiome, and a side of yogurt. So that would be my lunch.
Cool.
And my dinner, I did scrambled eggs actually. And we just threw a bunch of things in there. So I did eggs with broccoli, tomatoes, spring onion, some bell peppers. We do legumes, like I said, lentils. Literally anything we see in the fridge, you just chuck it in your scrambled egg. Pop some avocado, and we also do like cottage cheese when it's done. We do a mixture of different types of seeds, little sauce if we want. You can do like a tahini sauce, some kimchi. There's your dinner. And it's
your husband's on board as well.
Yeah,
or is this you eating alone and he's a rogue agent?
I am very lucky that I did not marry a picky eater. I'm actually the picky one out of us. So he'll eat whatever I make and love it, which is fantastic.
Oh, nice. Cool.
And then some snacks, a lot of tea. I drink a lot of tea. Rooibos, you can see.
Of course.
Yep. Green tea, mint tea, water. We have black tea. You name it. We drink a lot. So yeah.
So big learning for me is just the diversity that's on the plate. There are a lot more ingredients. I think you're a lot smarter when it comes to spicing things up with seeds and with spices and those kind of things. Yeah, and just if you just look at a simple smoothie, the amount of stuff you're throwing in there, you know, that's you, as you said, you're scoring gut points for sure already. Just the amount. You drink coffee as well. Okay, good. Brings me to a question. Coffee, I love. Nobody's going to take away my double espresso. I have a very nice Italian coffee
Same.
machine. Nobody's going to take that away. Like, don't F with my coffee. But people say like, oh, you should really watch out. No way. But dehydration and the gut.
What is your question?
Is there a link? What is that link? Because if I look at dehydration as something I'm focusing on, or hydrating myself better, I looked at my weight, how much water I need, and I'm way below that. And I'm just, sorry, I'm peppering you with a question now, but that's something I desperately want to know if there's a link.
So I'll look at this from a human physiology standpoint. Your body tries to balance itself out as much as possible, as much as it can. This goes back to also a lot of people have electrolytes. They drink electrolytes because for whatever reason. Your body tries to balance all of this out, your electrolytes, your water intake. So if you are dehydrated, you're not consuming enough water, your gut is going to try and absorb as much of that as possible. And this is where constipation comes in, is where things can't move easily because your body's like, hey, we need the water. You're not giving us enough, so we're going to try and suck out as many of that as possible, fluids, not just from water, but from specific foods, etc. Whereas if you have enough, this is when things can flow easy because your body says, we're fine, we're good right now. We can take half of this. You can keep the rest, your stool, for example, and then things can flow easier. So that's the connection that I would say, the way that it goes. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I think I'm also going to get like a Bristol stool chart and just put it on the door, because for those listening, you can get like a metric where you can look at and like, okay, in which category am I? And it's also something I know Asian doctors immediately look at, like your stool.
It gives us a good insight, right, into what's happening.
Yeah. And sometimes when you've had a good session, then you walk out with a spring in your step, kind of. That's
Absolutely.
how I walk out. And if it's a crime scene or a painful occurrence, then you have to go back to the drawing board. But thanks for walking us through your diary, your food diary. I love it.
Yeah, very welcome.
So thanks for coaching me. I do feel coached. I know in your role description, it's not strictly speaking a coach, but you're an expert, and you mentioned that in universities you did coach individuals, and I think that really kind of comes through. Also, you had me do a lot of the thinking, getting me to look at my own plate, so to speak, and what do you think? How could you improve this? So I can say honestly, I felt very coached, and I'm leaving this kind of coaching session inspired, because I find diet, nutrition, microbiome is such an important thing, such a focus of mine. And I already know where to find the hemp seeds and the spices that we tucked away in the closet. So they're coming out first thing when I walk down.
Fantastic.
My wife is also going to be like, finally. Good. So now the section is where we ask you, and I say we on purpose. So I have a small WhatsApp community of friends, people that owe me money, the neighbors in there, but they represent the listener to me because I haven't published yet. I publish in May, and I wanted them to get access to you as well. And we had some questions, so they can go in any direction, but we had some really good questions there. And I know at least 3 suspects in that group are very focused on the gut microbiome. Mainly because I've never stopped talking about it since I realized. So I've kind of converted them, let's say. But we can take them one by one. We can spend maybe a minute or so speaking about it. If we go down a rabbit hole, that's absolutely fine.
Good to know, because I usually go down a rabbit hole. So
yeah, me too. Okay, good. So I love this one. And I'm actually going to tweak this one a little bit. I know the person who asked this, they won't mind. It's my sister. So anyway, if you had to explain the microbiome to a kindergarten class, how would you do it? I'd add to this, and I'd say InnerBuddies gets to talk to the Minister of Education in the Netherlands, and there's an opportunity for you guys to maybe subsidize or get enable schools to get access to subsidized microbiome tests. How would you explain the gut microbiome to a kindergarten class? And maybe what would your pitch be to the Minister of Education?
Wow. Okay. This has got me thinking.
We can take them one by one. So the kindergarten class, how would you explain microbiome to them? Yeah.
Okay. So there's actually many different symbolic ways, I guess, or things that people use, like it's a garden or it's a jungle or a classroom, as we were speaking about earlier. I think if I were to explain this to a kindergarten class, I would use a garden. So I would probably say, as simple as possible, imagine in your tummy, we're not going to say gut because that's very confusing. In your tummy, you have a magic garden. So these plants, these bees, animals can speak to one another. In your magic garden, you have very helpful, happy flowers, all different types of flowers. They make things beautiful. They make people happy. You have the bees, and they work together with the bees. But then you also have the not so nice things in this magic garden, like, for example, the weeds, the not so pretty things. The way that you water your garden, you can think about the food that you eat. If you have good food, this is good water, good soil for the happy, beautiful flowers and bees. And the not so good food, like your candy, your biscuits, your chips that mom and dad say you shouldn't have, those feed the bad things, like the weeds. Probably.
No, I love it. Already we're back to the name of InnerBuddies. That's also so good for kids. But I was there, right there in the class, like looking at this magical garden. You need visual aids for this, right?
Yeah.
You need like a magical garden. But I love that. And the kids, my daughter would have been like, she'd be like, Daddy, we need to do this. We need to water our garden. And then okay, cool. I'd love that. I think you guys should do that. I think you guys should explain. When I think about the education system, I don't know where the microbiome fits in there at the moment, but I think when I just think about my kids, like I would want them to understand that early. I'm lucky because I'm very a passionate cook. If I have the worst day, I'm going to go to the kitchen. And usually at the moment, there's the usual suspect, my daughter sitting up there on the kitchen counter with me, kind of like nerding out about stuff. But for everybody else who are maybe not passionate cooks, it's probably quite difficult. Just thinking about education, I would love, even in terms of just talks like you're doing at the university. You mentioned Wageningen in university, like getting them while they're young, I think, and onboarding them with such a fun way, such fun imagery like a garden is a cool thing. Part 2 was the pitch to the Minister of Education. How would you go about that?
To pitch why?
So this would be the government subsidizing InnerBuddies tests in schools so that students can, together with their parents, can get access to this.
Well, that's quite simple. That's what we also want as a company. We actually want to get this not only subsidized but completely paid for by insurance companies in the future. So that's what we're heading for, because it's quite expensive test, as you know. How I would pitch this is that we know through research that your gut microbiome is linked to virtually every aspect of your health and wellness. We see this. There is a correlation with every aspect. We're talking about your gut-brain axis. We're talking about your immune system. Specifically, if we're speaking about kids, how well are they focusing in the classroom? What is their mood? What is their energy levels? How is it adding to cognitive development? We should be able to test this. And if we test this, we have a base. And we can build on that base, because knowledge is power. If you don't know, how do you know what to do? And I see this in individuals actually, is a lot of the time people do know. They do know, I'm probably not eating enough vegetables. I'm probably not eating enough fruit, whatever it is. But until they actually see that in a blood test, in a stool sample test, in a whatever, a lot of times nothing gets done. You need to have that coaching session, that data in front of your face to realize, oh, wait, okay, I should actually be doing X, Y, Z. And if we can get that into the education system from a young age, we can explain it in a way that makes sense to them, why it's so important. We can also then educate them on healthy eating. What does this look like? How does it support your buddies that live inside you? And then we impact not just one part of your health, your gut microbiome, but indirectly every part of your health.
Makes me want to go back to school. That school, though, that we're kind of like building right now. I also saw on television, and I think I'm going to check this and write it in the description afterwards. I think it was Japan, that each school has to have a nutritionist.
It is Japan. I know exactly what you're talking about, yeah.
I mean, that makes perfect sense. And then steering that, or connecting that with the so what can we do about it? And looking at that. Interesting. Okay. So that's the first question. What is... Oh yeah, we spoke about your favorite hero bacteria already. Can you remind us of the name?
Phytobacterium.
Nice. Okay. And the villain, do you have a villain bacteria?
The villain bacteria actually also showed that was the Fusobacterium. So that is the one that thrives on these ultra processed meats, for example, and that has been linked to colon issues and colon cancer.
How can people repair their gut microbiome after taking antibiotics / chemotherapy?
This is a good one. So I would start with, we need a broad approach here, but strain-specific probiotics. So probiotics that have been studied for helping with healing the gut microbiome after antibiotics. These do exist. So I would say a mixture of strain-specific probiotics. Prebiotics. What are prebiotics again? This is food that feeds your good bacteria. So what you want to do, you had this much, right? Then you took antibiotics. We're here now. What you're trying to do is you're trying to help the good guys. You're trying to give them as many weapons as possible to grow their army against the bad. How do you do this? You feed a wide variety of plant foods, specifically prebiotics as well, so that they can grow, they can become the majority in your gut microbiome. They can keep out the bad. And then probiotics, as I mentioned, also helps with this. So a combination of the two, I would say.
So fair to say you'd be very careful about what strains, what types. You wouldn't just throw a bunch of darts on the dartboard. You would kind of get it analyzed, get it tested, and then a targeted approach right for a specific individual.
Absolutely.
Because otherwise you might just, buy or grab everything from the probiotic shelf, and maybe some, don't do you justice, or some you don't even need to take because you're okay. So you take a very targeted approach, kind of tailored to the individual.
Yeah.
Okay. Does sugar intake disrupt the balance of gut bacteria?
Yes. So as I mentioned earlier, I believe in a everything fits kind of approach. So everything in moderation. I think that's super important. You need to enjoy life as well. But excess sugar intake, absolutely. Excess sugar intake feeds the bad bacteria. So we spoke about feeding your good through a diverse plant-based diet, prebiotics. Sugar is one of these. Excess sugar feeds the bad. So you want that, if you're talking about the balance in your gut, you want the good guys to outweigh the bad guys, right? If you're consistently feeding the bad, those tables are going to turn. And this is where you get that gut barrier that's not as good anymore. You get inflammation, etc. So, yes.
Back to my assumption, my kind of approach when I did the 180 in my diet, I suspected sugar, and I suspected my body reacting to sugar. And I love those movies. You put a can of a soda on the table, and then you put the cubes of sugar that is actually in there, right? And also comes back to education. I think also loads of kids stuff in the supermarket aisles, like these fruit juices, fruit things, like they're not. It's ultra processed, and they're bright colors, and they're on the bloody height of the children as well. Like it's a
perfect marketing.
A mission going to exactly. In the supermarket with my daughter, it's always fun. And the occasional tantrum, lying on the ground, but then I'm the kind of dad that then pulls her by the feet and just makes everybody laugh.
Yeah.
First, everybody's like, okay, should he be doing this? Is this her dad? Like, do we need to intervene? Then they realize, okay, no, the daughter's laughing too now. But yeah, interesting. My point being, making an assessment like a sugar audit is something that I did. And it's so intimidating when you look at the back of the stuff. It's not easy. It's not user-friendly, all the things that are in these foods. But if you kind of research it, maybe speak to a coach, maybe speak to Crystal someone who knows about these kind of things. I did it myself. It was a steep learning curve, but I was surprised at the amount of sugar that I was taking in. Also in alcohol. I lived in Germany. They had great beer, the occasional beer in the evening. But if you tot it all up at the end of the day, I was having quite a lot of sugar. And that's why I snuck that question into the audience question.
I have a question for you,
gonna...
actually.
Yeah,
Since
tell me.
you were someone that consumed a lot of sugar and now don't, um, do you find that your sugar craving decreased the less you
Yes,
ate?
massively. So I've been trying to find, and maybe you can help me with that, a sugar expert for the podcast, because I'd love to wear one of those plasters, and I'd love to look at the app to see what foods, what drinks, what kombucha, what dates, and all these things that have sugar but maybe don't spike your levels as much as one might think. So I'd love to go there, but I noticed massively in terms of energy levels, things improved. I was not up, down, like a massive boost from all the sugar and then a massive crash. And then there's that graph. And then there's also the espresso graph, right? So, you get a massive rocket. So it's just like, this kind of radio frequency going on. Now it's still up and downs, but espresso and tiredness mainly. Sugar is quite. So yeah, I'm actually quite proud when I look back at that intervention, and I don't miss it. So I don't have cravings for sugary drinks. I don't need candy anymore. Chocolate's always going to be, Tony Chocolonely, that has a place in the household as well, but it's also like not every day.
Yeah. No, that's I love that we can speak about this, because that's something I've seen in my own household. My husband is a sweet tooth. I've never been one, but then he got married to me, and so we don't really have a lot of sweets in the house. And the difference in craving sugar and how drastically that changed the less sugar he consumed. And this is also because we know that sugar is addictive. So it is this, if you're having it the whole time, you're craving it the whole time.
I have to think about kids again, when my daughter's partying at any partying, my daughter's partying, but like there are loads of birthdays in the neighborhood, let's say, and they often then have, soft drinks, or they often have like syrups that go into water. And I'm not going to be like, you shouldn't drink this, but I'm just like scanning. I'm like, okay, that's sugar. And mentally, I would like to get there as a parent, that I know kind of how many sugar cubes she has had based on what she's done. But just again, I think it's not common knowledge what a very, very sugary drink can do to you if you have that early in the morning, or if you have punch with syrup and these kind of things. And then you have, also in your diet. But yeah, sugar was a big one. Let's see. We also touched about that. Yeah, we didn't. Okay, not entirely. What are the worst ultra-processed foods for your gut health?
The worst. This is a difficult one. To be honest, I'm not sure that it's been studied to have a blanket statement like this of just pointing out one.
Have you read the book, Ultra Processed People, Chris von Tillicum?
No, I have not.
Okay, first recommendation for a book. I absolutely love it. So he's a doctor who went down the rabbit hole of studying ultra-processed foods in a very scientific way. Okay, so maybe there aren't the absolute worst ones, but as a category, you already alluded to moderation, okay, but you should be aware of these things. So we spoke about ultra-processed ham, for instance.
Absolutely.
Not saying that that's the absolute worst one, but like there's a lot of ultra-processed foods. I mean, just thinking of the supermarket aisle, walking through there, what's organic and what's with a lot of fiber versus what's in a plastic, colorful wrapping, and is ultra-processed.
Absolutely. So my approach to this would be to limit as much as you can. Right. So for some people, some type of ultra processed food they don't even like, so it's easy. But for me, for example, I grew up eating a lot of chips or crisps. I don't know what. So that's one that I know I don't have to worry about candy or any of that because it doesn't bother me. But this is one that does. So you need to look at your individual and what you like and don't like, and then as much as you can, decrease all types of ultra processed foods. Yeah.
Different lens, I think, for a lot of individuals. I'm thinking now of a ultra-processed food audit, like just kind of having a notepad, a mental notepad where you look at what is ultra-processed and what not. And it's not that easy to do it first. Reading that book I mentioned helps. But yeah, that's also a new way of looking at food, I think.
It's also a huge part of many people's diets is ultra-processed foods, and don't even think about it, but it's a huge part of the population nutrient intake.
I'm looking at a lot of the questions we covered. We spoke about probiotics. We spoke about stress and sleep. We also, yes, maybe one about, does spending time in nature improve your gut health? Now, I know in the questionnaire you guys ask, did you grow up on a farm? Do you spend time outside? Do you live in a city?
Yes.
So what's the background of that? Why do you ask that?
Why do we ask that is because literature does look into this topic of how does nature, so for example, we asked, did you grow up on the countryside or in the countryside or in the big city? And we do see a difference there. Being in nature, in the countryside, among different animals, soil, your feet in the grass, really does positively impact your gut microbiome because your microbes aren't just in your gut, they're all around us. They're all around us. They're in the air, the water, the food, the soil. And so it's good for us to interact with those microbes. Some are bad, of course. We know this is why we get ill, but a lot are really good and beneficial. So, fun story, actually. I am not a pet person at all, like dogs or cats. So I didn't grow up with pets. I don't particularly enjoy working in this field, I know the benefits of, for example, dogs and children growing up with pets in the household. So I'm already preparing myself for the day that we start having kids. I'm probably going to get a pet or two in the house for the benefit of my children. So yeah.
That's cool. I love that. We have a dog with leadership ambitions. She challenges me every day to be the boss. She wants a promotion every day, but she's a sweetheart. She's a Hungarian hunting dog. Good for kids. You'll see my daughter tug on my ear, and the dog's kind of fine with it. So we're lucky on that front. But that's also cool. Okay, yeah, I can imagine growing up on a farm. There's a different ecosystem of bacteria around you, if you can call it like that. Why is poop talk still taboo?
Yeah. That's a great question. I would love to know why you think it. I think it's because there's a lot of embarrassment around it. It's something that I think anything that comes out of the human body is going to be taboo to speak about, and poop is one of those as well. I wish it wasn't. I mean, it gives you so much insight into your health, but I do find it to be a topic. Even when I speak about it, I don't care anymore, of course, but
My wife gets uncomfortable. There are other people in my circles. They disappear from planet Earth when they go to the toilet. Like, you're like, where's that guy? Like, did he leave? And everybody else is like, who are you talking about?
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
there is no one. And then the person goes upstairs, comes to like downstairs and rejoins the group. Like, what did you do? You know,
yeah.
what? Do you...
That's so
so,
funny because it's something we all do, right? It's just
yeah,
it's
yeah,
a
yeah.
part of being a human. So it's quite funny, but yes, a huge I think embarrassment still around the topic.
Yeah. But it can be so funny.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
can be it can be so funny. Cool. And we've already tackled the last one. Good. What's one question you would want Peter to ask you?
Ooh.
These are good questions.
Yeah. What is, I feel like you've asked me all of the ones. Maybe where should someone start? They have no
Oh,
idea.
that's a good one.
Yeah. So
Where should someone start?
where should someone start? I would say, yeah, of course, doing a test to get an insight is fantastic. As I said, knowledge is knowing is wealth, knowledge is wealth. But what we were speaking about earlier in terms of looking at what you do from a dietary standpoint and seeing how can I spice things up in a way that is beneficial for my gut health, because your gut health impacts everything else. So I love to start with fiber. That's one thing I've been pressing on. And so look at that. What does that actually look like? What are foods that are high in fiber, high in prebiotics, which are the food that feed your good bacteria? And how can I use that to spice up what I currently do? How can I make some swaps? For example, if you have, what is it called here? Ground beef, minced
Mm-hmm.
meat.
Mm-hmm.
Instead
Mm-hmm.
of just having that, half
Gehakt.
gehakt.
In
Yeah.
Nederlands gehakt. En in
Runder
het
gehakt.
Afrikaans ook.
Ja, ja.
Runder
Runder
gehakt, ja.
gehakt. If you have that, for example, that's okay. Why don't we, instead of having a full portion, you cook half of that and half beans, kidney beans, red beans, or whatever. If I use no seeds, easy, sprinkle some seeds over. If I have white grains, let's swap this for whole grain. Let's, instead of having rice, let's have quinoa, right? Some little things of what am I currently doing? How can I tweak? instead of going from 0 to 100, it's never going to work.
Yep.
It's never going to work.
Yep.
What are you currently doing? What do you enjoy? How do I make some tweaks?
I love it. And I love starting small. I love that approach. And also the fact that one can test these things and do these assessments. I like the idea of doing that over time, like I have, because it was incredibly motivating to see the changes come back. Like now seeing the diversity of my gut compared to the one after antibiotics, for instance, when it was less diverse, is motivating. That is like, I am on the right path. And that only makes me want to read more books, think of more items for the Weller menu in my household. One more question for me. If you can imagine all listeners driving past on the highway, the same big billboard, and you could have space on that billboard. It's the Crystal / InnerBuddies billboard. What would your message be to all the listeners who pass this on their way to work in the morning?
On the billboard, we had, I'm just thinking, I would always do it funny. I would do something funny because, of course, I mean, we can.
Yeah.
We had this image that we created, I don't know, 2 years ago, that was a kid sitting on a toilet. And it said, what did it say? Poop it, scoop it, know it.
Wow.
And something in that, something funny. I would do something funny and some kind of statement of your gut health is linked to your overall health and wellness. Take it seriously, or listen to your gut feeling, or something funny, something catchy.
It has me grinning from ear to ear because that is one of the coolest billboards so far on the Coach Me If You Can show. I ask this every guest. Poop it, scoop it, know it.
Yep.
And then by the way, if you want to find out more, if individuals do want to find out more about what you do in your career, but also InnerBuddies, where can they go?
We have a website, so we do sell B2C, and that is www.innerbuddies.com. Quite simple.
Crystal Kriek, it's been an absolute pleasure. I've had fun. I've learned. I felt coached. Yeah, so what a pleasure. Thanks for joining us on the show, and I hope to see more of you in the future.
Yeah, thank you so much, Peter. I've had such a fun time, and glad that you also felt coached and got some information out of it. So hope I see you in the future as well.